So it's actually nearly midnight. And wake up until like after 10. I think the weather just nailed me. Um, the temperature fell very quickly. And I mean that's 2 days in a row where I slept for like over 12 hours. We're close to it, anyways. Over 10. Yeah, it was over 10 hours yesterday, and like yeah, it was like 14 hours today. So that was a lot of sleeping. Um, but if your body needs to sleep, your body needs to sleep, right? Like I say, I think it was the weather. Um, that's one of the nice things about being disabled is that you don't have to deal with schedules like this. If you want to sleep all day and wake up at 10, you can do that. Um, that's a level of freedom that most people will never even contemplate. It's like something that exists in a different, plane of existence, right? But once you get used to it, it's very, very, very hard to let go of because it is freedom. At really what is the most basic, fundamental level of freedom, which is the ability to allow your body to dictate what it is that you're doing. That could mean going to the bathroom. It could mean getting something to eat, or it could mean sleeping. I mean, you can talk about, how you're enslaved to your body if you want, but that's not something that can really be modified. You can modify your relationships with other humans, but you can't really modify your relationship um, with your physical, chemical existence. So that's freedom, the freedom to sleep in. And it really is remarkable that we live in a society where most people don't even know what that is like. They have to wait 5 or 6 days. They have to drag themselves. If they're lucky, if they get the weekends off, before they can get a chance to sleep. It's it's a sick reality. Um, but it's not questioned, right? And hopefully I can have you realize the absurdity of a world that prevents people from sleeping in order to make money for some barely understood hierarchy, right? Anyways, um, I'm up very late in the day today. Um, I've got the show tomorrow. We'll see how that all spins out. What did I get done yesterday? Not as much as I'd like, again, but a little bit. I think I got over the hump, and I think that if I can put myself in the zone, I can get a lot more done today. But it's going to be weird because of the way that everything's going to... If I stay up and I don't sleep between now and the show, it's going to be like a 24-hour day, which is fine. I've done it before. But, like, how am I reacting to the weather sort of thing? But that said, it's hard to see where I can squeeze in some sleep. So, I don't know how that's going to work out. But I do think I can... I've already eaten, so I think I can get a good chunk of it done. I have determined that I will not be doing this past the 10th. I've been saying this for a while, that I was going to come to a point and make a decision, etc. It's the 10th. That's the day. Because at that point, it's 3 months. And I knew this was going to take a little while. I didn't I can do it to take a couple of months. Once I get to 3, then that's past the amount of time that I'm willing to allot towards it. So we'll be on April 10th that my focus will shift, whether I like it or not, kind of thing. It's how it needs to be. So that's what's happening there. But when I was eating, I was watching the thing here, and I have something to say about it. They were talking about, GMOs and organic farming, and the thing that rubbed me the wrong way was the repetition of widely spread misunderstandings. And you see this all the time. Okay. It was when he contrasted contrasted organic farming with chemical-based farming. You hear that all the time. And it's based on a completely false understanding of what organic farming is. Okay? So I'm going to say the word organic. What do you think the word organic means? Think about it. I'll give you some time to think about it. Okay, it's enough time. So, therefore, organic farming should mean... Okay. There's logic there. Chances are you don't know what organic actually means. In order to know what organic means, you would have to have taken courses in chemistry. I believe at higher than a high school level, but I'm not sure about that exactly. You would at least have to have taken, a late high school course in chemistry. Organic means that it is a chemical that has the molecules of, or the elements of carbon and hydrogen in them. So gas, for example, is an organic compound because it consists of hydrocarbons. The reason that the term organic is chosen is because it refers to the basis of life. We are carbon-based life. Some Isaac Asimov novels propose the idea of silicon-based life. But the bond that forms between carbon and hydrogen specifically is very powerful due to the way that the electrons are organized around. And I mean, I'm using a somewhat deprecated model. It's not exactly how we understand things anymore. But nonetheless, the term organic, there's this whole quantum, physics concept. You've got, we used to think of things very, but what we did actually was we took Newton's concept of the cosmos and we shrunk it down, and we said that that's the way atoms must be, right? So we came up with this model where there's a center of gravity, and you've got the electrons, circling around the center. In the center, you have your neutrons and your protons, and you have your electrons cycling around it like you would have a planet cycling around a sun or a star, right? We know today that it's more chaotic than that. The electrons are more kind of just like held in suspension kind of thing. Instead of talking about, this is where the electron is rotating, we talk about the probability of where an electron might be, because those orbits don't really actually happen at all, and et cetera, et cetera. But the idea of the organic compound is that it's based on this strong connection between carbon and hydrogen molecules. So that's what the word organic means. Um, Orange juice is an organic uh, uh, compound, as is the gasoline that you put in your car, so long as it's unleaded. Um, as well as most of the plastics that we have around us. These are all organic things. And you're going to say, wait, I thought organic meant natural. Okay, maybe you did, but you were wrong. That's not what organic means. Okay? Maybe it does in a colloquial sense, but when you're talking about chemicals, it specifically refers to the CH bond, right? Maybe an intuitive way to understand it is to consider the term natural gas. Well, it's natural, therefore it must be organic. Actually, that's true in this context. Natural gas is an organic compound, but it's maybe not what. I mean, when I draw your attention to it, then you'll see that makes sense, right? Even though all I'm really actually doing is tricking you with language. So what is organic farming then? Well, now that we know that organic refers to chemicals that have the CH bond in them, or that are carbon-based specifically, we can talk about organic farming as farming that uses organic pesticides. Now, just because a pesticide is made out of carbon and hydrogen, as opposed to, lead or nitrogen is kind of. I think that some definitions of organic actually include nitrogen, as well as oxygen. But a chemical compound that included chlorine, for example, that would be definitely not organic, right? And we know that chlorine is bad for you, but we also know that water is bad for us, and water, well, if we drink it, it's bad. If we swallow it, if we drink it, it's good for us. If we swallow it, it's bad for us, right? Did I just say water? Well, talk about a ridiculous example. Cut. No, I don't do that. I just keep going. Okay, so we know that there's lots of organic compounds. Some of them were dropped, in fact, in Vietnam, and some of them were used in gas chambers in the Third Reich. We know that there's plenty of organic compounds that are very, very bad for us. They can kill us pretty much on contact. Anything that's acidic, that has a very low pH level, would be very bad in that context as well. Explosives. You can come up with all kinds of organic compounds that are horrible for human health. They can get stuck into the water supply, and that don't go away, etc., etc. All the same problems that you would associate with pesticides will also occur with organic pesticides. So, why is it that people want to promote organic pesticides? And I know that I've lost a lot of people. They won't even acknowledge the term organic pesticide because they don't understand what organic means. And we went through that. I will refer you back to the beginning of this rant. Okay? But why is it that people want to push for organic pesticides over non-organic pesticides? And you have to keep in mind that a lot of conventional farms may use mostly organic pesticides, and just use a small amount of non-organic pesticides for you know uh, targeted applications, meaning that in actual practice, the differences between the pesticides in a conventional farm and an organic farm are going to be broadly fairly minimal, right? But why is it that people, well, the biggest reason is that it's a good marketing scam. There's big companies that want to sell you organic foods, which are the same as the non-organic foods in any nutritional or functional sense, but they want to charge you 2 or 3 times as much for them. That's if you read the UN documents around the UN's recommendations for organic farms in the developed world, the logic is not that it's better for the environment or that it's better for it's less carcinogenic or any of these other unproven claims. You wouldn't see claims like that at the UN because the UN is a science-based organization. Rather, the claims that you see at the UN have to do with it generating more income. So what they do is they say, okay, developing country, you need to get as much money out of trade as you can, so why don't you do this organic? That way you can charge, the rich bastards in the West 3 times as much money. And it's easy to empathize with that. I mean, we're rich, they're poor. How do they get as much? I mean, I'm not going to criticize them for that. But if we're going to look at the situation, from a sustainability perspective, we have to understand the recommendations before we go bandying them around. It is true that the UN does recommend organic farming for developing nations, but the reason is because it's more profitable. And that's the reason why you see big companies move in that direction. The other reason is that there's a real activist hate on towards some of the companies that make the pesticides, and I mean I'm not. There's lots of reasons for that. Um, if you've got a hate on for Monsanto or for Dow Chemicals, it's not hard to come up with the reasons why. I mean, you've got the big explosion in Bhopal, where you've got the patenting of the seeds. There's lots of reasons to hate these bastards. I don't disagree with you, but let's keep the science real, okay? And what you see a lot in the activist community is guilt by association, right? These companies do this and it's terrible, so therefore everything we do should be in opposition to them. Without really taking the time to actually look at what it is that you're proposing, the actual validity of the science that you're presenting, and etc. and etc. I'll leave the GMO rant to a different point. I don't see any logical reason why anybody should be afraid of GMOs. Um, Nobody has ever proposed to me a mechanism in which your body would treat them any differently than non-GMO um, foods. It's your stomach is a giant pit of acid. It breaks everything up to its constituent components. I can't think of the slightest reason why your body would care if what you're eating is modified by humans or not. Nobody's been able to answer that. Like, why would you think it should be dangerous? Um, it's easy to agree that there have not been trials. It would take a very long time to do those trials, right? So it's easy to agree with that. That okay, we're the experiment, sure. It's a lot harder to come up with a hypothesis as to why you think there's concern. I mean, I could argue that um, there, it has not been disproven that there um, uh, are jaguars in this specific area of suburban Canada, right? And so every time I go to this region, I need to acknowledge that nobody has ever disproven the existence of jaguars here. As another to come up with a reason why I would think that there might be jaguars there. And so the whole argument is stuck in this logical problem. It's created a problem, or it's created a solution without a problem. Um, I like I say, I'm not doing this now. I'll do this some other time. But I can't for the life of me think of any reason why GMOs ought to be dangerous. And before you can convince me that they are, you need to convince me why they should be. Right? Before I have any sort of concerns or I acknowledge that your fears are in any way justified, and the whole meddling with nature thing, it doesn't. I don't think that nature is that I don't see any sanctity in nature, right? It's just a bunch of chemicals, and if we understand how the chemicals work, then there's no fear in rearranging them. If you wish to provide a rational fear for me to have, you have to suggest to me ways that those rearrangements might be dangerous. Saying we haven't tested every possible possibility, I mean, it's a fear of the unknown, right? That's what it reduces to ultimately, is a fear of the unknown, which is just ultimately pure ignorance, right? But the whole thing is stemming out of that. Like I say, I can agree with you on some level if you think that you need to take these companies down, because there is a certain aspect of their business models that are questionably evil, depending on how you define the term evil. But I think it's really important that you keep the science real, because you're never going to convince someone like me unless you actually know what you're talking about. And if you're not trying to convince people like me, or people that are smarter than me, then all you're doing is building an army of ignorant fools. And there's no positive endpoint in that. If you want to raise an army of idiots, you might see people like me actually take the side of the state and saying you're dangerous. So let's keep the science real. If we're going to talk about organic farming, let's just make sure that we know what it means. And if we're going to advocate for laws regarding things surrounding organic farming, we should certainly know what it means before we do that. And that's just not being done. Alright, so that's that. I'll get back to those. A few things for the garbage. I've got some cheese. And in a moment of weakness, on the way back from my dance night there, I did buy some chips. So that's those going in there. I gotta smash that down a little. It looks to me like this is gonna be a split day, so we're gonna do 2 Hillary Saids in a row for the 3rd and 4th of April. I am proud to stand here on the soil of a free Tripoli, and on behalf of the American people, I congratulate Libya. This is Libya's moment. This is Libya's victory. The future belongs to you. That was something that Hillary said in Libya after the death of Gaddafi, which she ordered through her minions. She actually said it. We came, we saw, he died. some kind of strange channeling of Caesar. And I think this is a little bit more important. There is the hyperlink. Of course, I'll put that in there. Because I think that it demonstrates how Hillary sees herself and how Hillary sees the United States. Um, Hillary is not running for the presidency. Hillary is running for empress. She sees the United States in terms of a neo-colonial New Roman Empire. And this is one of many examples that you will see in her life of her directly channeling like Roman military orthodoxy. It's what Caesar said. Well, it's a twisted version of what Caesar said when he conquered. Was it Gaul? Yeah, it was Gaul. Which was we conquered. Veni Vidi Vici, or whatever it was. Twisted language aside, I mean, she's clearly attempting to present herself in the terms of a general emperor type thing, right? And it brings into the whole concept of conquering provinces. You have to know a little bit about Roman history to kind of get this, and this is why it's scary and everything. Just I mean, just you can have a very very negative gut reaction from watching this, right? It's freaky, but if you actually understand what she's channeling and the whole Roman history, it just gets that much creepier. This is obviously a complicated thing. I don't know how well I can do this off the I didn't write any of this down again. I'm just ranting off the cuff here. But there was an idea, and whether this was an idea that the Roman emperors themselves realized, or whether it was something that Roman historians created, and then it became, a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. It is harder to disentangle, but there is a narrative through Roman history of emperors conquering territories and adding them to the empire, either right before they become emperor or right after they become emperor. And it's a pattern that develops. So they go out and they prove the glory of the empire. They demonstrate their war victories, and then they say things like, "We came, we saw, and we conquered." So when you put that quote in the proper context, what you're understanding is the way that Clinton sees the United States is as a global hegemon, a global empire, and there really hasn't been anybody quite like that yet. We can argue when this shift, from republic to empire happened, maybe sometime a little after World War II, and it would have taken a generation or two for the mindset to really kind of flip over, for the switch to really flip, right? So, I mean, and in that context, you want to think of Reagan not as the beginning of something, but as the end of something. Reagan was the last really old. Well, I mean, I guess maybe you've got George H.W. Bush as well. And I mean, it was, let us not forget, Bush the first that called for the New World Order, right? And so maybe we can build the beginnings of that in there. But Bill Clinton didn't really see that. In fact, if anything, Bill Clinton seemed to kind of reject that, right? He was kind of right in the middle of things, right? But he seemed more interested in kind of maintaining a defensive posture. I don't think. I mean, in a lot of ways, the world that we live in was created by Bill Clinton, but in a lot of ways, he was trying to kind of prevent things from happening the way that they happened as well. And depending on where you are in the spectrum, you can criticize him from either direction, right? You could say that he didn't put enough money into the military, or you could say that he didn't work hard enough to stop what happened and the trajectory that things were going down, right? I think Bush was actually at heart, he was an isolationist. I don't think he wanted any of what happened, and whether you take the false flag narrative of history or the official narrative of history, I think that either narrative places Bush in a situation he did not want to be in. I remember one of the things that he said when he was running for election is that he's not a nation builder. He really didn't want to be involved in any of that. He wanted to focus on domestic policies, and he just didn't care about. There was a skit floating around when he was running for election as well, where he didn't. People were asking him like who's the Prime Minister of India, and he couldn't answer the question, right? And that was a big joke, right? So Bush didn't see himself in the terms of an empire either, right? And I don't really think that Obama does either. I think maybe Obama might see himself in terms of he might see the United States as a global leader kind of thing, but I don't think he sees America as a hegemon. Clinton is probably the first serious presidential candidate that we've ever had that seriously sees America as an empire, and interprets that as more than a pejorative or more than language to avoid, right? America has historically attempted to avoid calling itself an empire because it wants to be seen as a democracy, right? The opposite of empire, right? I mean, it doesn't take a lot of insight to realize that has not been true for at least 100 years, at least. But nonetheless, there's still that narrative in the United States, right? Closest that anything has come to it is the whole manifest destiny. But the concept of manifest destiny is intrinsically anti-imperialist, right? Clinton, I think, is very much of a different mindset. She sees things as they are. There's not any cognitive dissonance in her mind. She understands America's an empire. She's trying to use lessons from Roman history to try to manipulate public opinion in ways that are very creepily reminiscent of what a Roman senator would have done. And I think that her policy will be openly imperialistic as a reflection of that. Something I said in my last, deeper analysis was. Did I just lose my train of thought there? I did. I think I was trying to say that something I said in my last train of thought, or my last deeper analysis was that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Is that I had supported Clinton in the 2008 primaries. I mean, it's moral support. I'm a Canadian, but I was able to see as the process was unfolding that the establishment had rejected her. That the establishment had said, "Okay, we're going behind this Obama guy." That Obama was running to the right, so I mean, there were, the banks preferred him for. I think probably the difference in healthcare policies was probably a big part of it. It's probably a big part of the reason why Hillary is not supporting a single-payer system anymore. But I was able to see what was happening, but I wasn't able to see the wisdom in it. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is what Clinton would be like if she was actually in power. And it's not a particularly appealing prospect. Just the open, blatant, bare concept of imperialism that she has is it's creepy. Okay, whether you're talking about the way that she went into Libya and the whole. I would love this to have like a real Roman historian really delve into this. Like do some some really serious research into what happened in Libya, and then draw those comparisons, to the whole, concept of bringing in a province into the empire, as a tactic of appealing to the masses, kind of thing, um, and how neurotic that is, in an attempt to try to apply that to today's reality. Um, Whatever Romans thought, 1500 to 2000 years ago, is one thing, but I think it's pretty clear that most Americans don't like the expenses involved in war. They don't feel that tinge of nationalism and get worked up, so much as they get frustrated. There's a legitimate fear that's been installed in people of the scary people that want to kill us, kind of thing. But there's not a legitimate desire to fight. And when we defeat a foreign power and add their realms to our empire, we don't get this groundswell of nationalism, right? In any sense, except that, okay, right now we can bring our guys home, right? But to really analyze that and point out how neurotic and almost schizophrenic it is, right? And then to bring in the age of pivot, this is going to be, if she wins, it's going to be a very militarized presidency. And I think if that's what people want, great, but let's make sure we understand it, okay? So it's a short clip. It speaks for itself on some level. On some level, it requires a very deep analysis. What I've given you here is very cursory. Hopefully someone else can expand on this and do a better job. This is likely the final Wisconsin update. We've had plenty of polls now, but I need to admit that I was reading some of them wrong. I had assumed that they were polling Democrats, and I should make a mental adjustment for independents, but it seems as though some of the polling firms made those mental adjustments themselves, and that I was adjusting it twice. No, they really shouldn't do that. It's making stuff up. I can do that because I'm a random person on the internet, but a polling firm should really just put the data down and that's it, sort of thing, right? Regardless, I should have checked that rather than assumed it. Apologies. I'll acknowledge that this is a little half-assed right now, though, too, on account of being a Canadian and not really seriously thinking that Bernie has a real chance. It is rigged. On top of that, it's also half-assed because in state after state after state, there's not a lot of data, right? And you're fighting with these these modelers and everybody. I mean, there's really just not the kind of signal that you really need to really understand what's going on, in state after state, right? Regardless, the correct understanding of the situation is actually as follows. And before I do this, I'll point out that Wisconsin was one of the few states where there was a good signal. Okay, first is that Clinton is actually maintaining a consistent lead amongst Democrats of about 5 points. It's not that different than the pre-polling in Illinois. Second is that Sanders has a large lead of over 10 points amongst independents. The adjustment that the polling companies are doing is that actually maybe a bit more generous than I'd give him. If he was winning by 5 amongst Democrats, I'd argue the polls say he should win by 10. The polls actually say he's losing by 5 amongst Democrats. I'd argue the polls suggest it should be about a split then, because I'd want to make about a 5-point difference. But they're giving him an extra 5 points. This is similar to what they were doing in other states like Ohio and Illinois. They're setting up higher expectations, and when he doesn't meet those expectations, a sense of disappointment will set in. with everything lined up, the polls suggest a split on voting day, and then you have the early ballots and the voter suppression and everything else. I don't think you should be excited about the results. The results that are officially recorded will likely be very close to a clean split. She may win by one, or he may win by one, or something like that, right? I think you're being set up for a fall. That said, presuming he picks up 10 delegates on Wyoming, that's going to put him about 20 delegates behind where I suggested he needs to be, which is just all the more reason he needs to win big in New York. That's right. Even if he loses in Wisconsin, the math will still not have really changed. But if he can't win New York, huge. It will be finally time to declare the race a long shot. Okay, that's Wisconsin. I'm not really. I'm calling for a split because I think that she's going to cheat. But it doesn't really matter as long as she doesn't somehow win a blowout. His chances to win will neither be really damaged or increased by what happens in Wisconsin, regardless of the media narrative. It's going to be pretty close to a split, and whatever rolls off is going to be within small margins. So it's Wisconsin's an interesting state and everything, but it's not going to make it not going to make or break anything. So tonight is Sunlux. What's with the bad lensing there? Okay. So tonight is Sunlux, which is a band that I've been listening to a lot of recently. This is not a whim show. This is I might actually say the Sunlux would be my favorite band right now. Although I think I'm kind of past the age where I have a favorite band. I don't know. If one can still say that, if one still wants to, if I would still hierarchy these things like this. Certainly, I would think that I've probably been listening to more Sunlux than anything else over the last 2 or 3 years. If you read the media, they talk a lot about instrumental hip hop, and he has done some work as in the hip hop field. What I hear when I listen to it is a continuation of stuff like Peter Gabriel. There's some there's a big Nine Inch Nails influence, and I mean Nine Inch Nails was heavily influenced by hip hop as well, right? So there's the overlap. You also pull in some stuff like there's like a post punk kind of feel, but like a noisy post punk from stuff like Suicide and Juju. His vocals are very distinctive. If you're a Gabriel fan, you'll find them. You'll recognize them quickly. And that I think is really, I mean, it's the next generation of what Peter Gabriel was doing in the early '80s. That kind of like his third record, his fourth record, Games Without Frontiers, that kind of period. It's pulling a lot of other modern influences, like I say, like from all those things I said. But it's fundamentally that kind of electronic singer-songwriter pop music that's very well informed. There's a lot of instruments coming in from the classical world, from the jazz world, and it's very much mixing a lot of different things. So this is going to be a good show. He's really operating at the front of his field. He's one of the most exciting artists that are out there right now, and I look forward to this. I was hoping I could get there around 7:30, so I could buy some tickets. I've never gone to this place before. I don't know if there's going to be tickets at the door. I don't know how big it is, etc. So I hope I'm not disappointed. I'll find out when I get there. So I mean, it's about 7:30. Well, it's about 7:20 now, so unless I'm going to catch the 8 o'clock bus, I'll get there till around 8:30. Doors are at 8. So like I said, I was hoping to be there around 7:30. We'll find out. I may get disappointed. I sure hope not. The thing is, you also notice that I'm not looking particularly fancy. It's partly because I slept in, and partly because the weather is not so nice. It's not quite frightful. Like, I'm not going to get rained on or sleeted on or any of that kind of stuff. It's just that it's hovering around 0, and it's going to get down to about -5 overnight. So it's cold out. I'm going to make sure I have the heat on down here before I go so that it's warm when I come in. But I mean, I haven't brought you to this place yet, but it's right near the tunnel. So like, I'm going to literally get off the bus and it's there. So it's close. I'm not worried about missing the bus. I'm not worried about getting stuck in the cold or anything. But it means that like I have to wear a winter jacket and all these kinds of things. And when I get stuck in that rut, I tend not to really be that interested in looking nice because I've got to walk around with a giant school bag with a winter jacket in it anyways, right? It's the reality of things, right? So I don't think I look too bad, do I? That's not bad. Look like I look like a woman of my age going to see a band she likes, right? That's good enough, right? That's what I. So yeah, I'm out. It's weird, late fall, late winter. It's doing weird things with the sun. It's like it's 7:30 at night, and the sun's still up, but it's freezing. It's very disheveling, disorienting. You would not expect this kind of temperature associated with this kind of light sun. It feels like noon in February, and yet it's 7:30 in April. I'm gonna have to actually do my jacket up, so put this away here. But yeah, this is unusual. So I'm inside the St. Andrews. It's kind of a dingy punk bar. I've not been here before, but it's the kind of place I've been to 100,000 times, so it feels familiar anyways. See how this goes. So I'm currently between sets. The first set was, it initially came off as fairly interesting. It kind of reminded me, it was a three-piece band with a bassist, a drummer, and a keyboard player. Well, the keyboard player was fairly mute. It really came off more as a two-piece with it was a stand-up bass and a drummer. The overriding feel I got of it is there was a record release in the late 90s called Reich Remixed, which was a bunch of techno artists redoing a bunch of Steve Reich pieces. Very minimalist, but kind of techy oriented. But as the set went on, they started to pull in other influences. It kind of almost had there was a lot of syncopation that was kind of Crimson-ish. And I think maybe a younger set of ears might have heard a little bit Tool. It was interesting, but it was maybe a little too long in terms of what they did. Not in the sense of it taking up too much time, but just in the sense of that something like that will hit you and then disappear, kind of thing. It will dissipate. It's hard to maintain it, but it was interesting for what it was. I'll do a written review later, but it was I had no idea what it was walking in, but it was definitely interesting to check out. It's between sets. This place is really locked down. I'm not used to that, but I mean it is otherwise just kind of a typical dirgy punk bar, which I am used to. So. Kind of in between there. Actually, it looks like the set might be starting here. It is brutally cold. This isn't like remnant cold air. This is like cold air pushing down, right? Directly from the north. It's probably like -3 or something, but because it's all coming straight down, it feels a lot colder than that. So I'm freezing, but the show was amazing. I had seen footage of them live before, so I knew to expect something that was really tight, to say the least. That is one of the best bands I've ever seen, in terms of just the way they play. Just outrageous tightness and abstraction in everything they do. So that was an outrageous show. If you get a chance, you should definitely see them. I feel that it may have gone a little. I don't even want to say it went over the audience's head. I wasn't exactly. I mean, I spent a lot of the show just standing still too. It's that kind of thing, right? It's not really the kind of thing that it is. A lot of audience involvement. Oh, jeez, man, my hands are frozen. Okay, so I gotta put this away, but that was that's one of the better shows I've seen in a while. I would definitely advise seeing them if you get the chance. The bus is there. It's about a 20-minute ride around, so it should be about 20 minutes. I'm just not sure if that's the 11 o'clock bus or the 12 o'clock bus. I'm guessing it's a little after 11. Or a little bit before, maybe. I didn't bring a clock. I couldn't tell you. I may get home before midnight, or it might be before 1. I'm not sure. We'll find out. But now that I'm here, the drummer and the guitarist are both really top-notch musicians relative to what they do. It when they play live, it's more of a. It has a much more energetic kind of live band feel to it. I mean, that's the point, right? That's why he put together a live band, and it's working. Just the energy that the two of them add to the songs is really something else. I mentioned that they might be my favorite band right now, and then I kind of said, well, what does that even mean? I think that they may actually be the most important band right now. There's a few other things I can think of that are kind of like. There's the bus there. I don't know if you caught that. There's a few other things that are kind of in competition with them, but they're definitely very high up in terms of most important musicians currently operating. Just in terms of the breadth of what they do. I don't know, I think they played for around an hour. But they have enough strong material that they could have, there were people yelling, play for 3 hours, right? And frankly, they could have played for 3 hours, and nobody would have gotten bored. There's a long list of material they didn't do that I would have liked to see. Maybe one day I'll get the chance to see them play for 2 hours or 3 hours. But it's a treat. I'm playing it up. I'm playing it up for good reason. If you get a chance to see this band, you should. There's almost nothing that exists right now that's going to be more interesting than them. So do it. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. That's about it. Waiting can really be torture when your bladder is about to explode. It's not supposed to take more than 20 minutes to go around. I don't know what's going on. But, hey. Okay, I'm home and I'm safe, but I need to level with you. I did something that nobody should ever do, which is, I took pills from a stranger tonight. That's not something you should ever do. Now that being said, I did recognize the taste of the pills. I have a high degree of certainty that I swallowed what I think I swallowed. So it's not I'm not concerned about lack of clarity. I am concerned a little bit, however, about dosage. So I'm pretty sure I know what I swallowed, but I'm starting to think that maybe I swallowed a bit of a creepy amount of it. So I may be in for a bit of a night. We'll find out. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I've never tried this before. I recognize the taste because I recognize the smell, and things taste the way they smell. No question there. I'm a little less certain. Well, okay, so I recognize the smell, but I've never actually. So I know what I think it was, but I've never actually done that before. So I have no idea what this is really going to be like. Hey? We'll find out. I am the Lizard Queen. Well, it's now 5 o'clock, and I'm still feeling a little bit distant. I think it's safe to say that I did not swallow anything dangerous. That doesn't mean that you should ever do that. So listen here, kids. Okay? If nobody ever told you, and somebody should have told you, and even if nobody did tell you, you should be able to just figure it out. You don't swallow pills that strangers give you. It worked out okay for me tonight. That's fine. But just don't do that in the future. You have no idea what it is. You don't know what it's going to do to you. But I mean, I'm okay. I did have a pleasantly silly evening, and it is nice. It was marvelously pleasant. Pleasant. We didn't get a facial of me saying pleasant. It's pleasant, pleasant, pleasant. I'm saying I'm okay. Is my behavior indicating that? I don't know. I feel alright. I'll start freaking out. Like I'll start hallucinating. Right? It's a 6-hour reaction. Yeah. Actually, at this point, it would be more like 7 hours. So I think that there's lots of reasons to think I'll be okay. I've had plenty to eat, which was as much of a precaution as anything else. I'm told that, or I looked it up on the internet, that you should probably, ensure that you don't have an empty stomach when you take pills from strangers, even if you're pretty sure you know what they are, and you're pretty sure that it worked out. But don't do it ever. It's a bad idea. Don't do as I say, not as I do. I've never understood why people get upset with that. If I do something stupid, should you do as I do? Or should you listen to me and say, no, that was stupid, don't do it? You might get it in your head that you shouldn't listen to me at all. But if you're going to listen to me, it's probably a better idea that you do as I say rather than as I did, given that I'm acknowledging that was stupid, right? So don't do that. Okay, just don't do it. At this point, is it 5 or is it 6? It might even be 6. It's early in the morning, and I've been awake for 30 some hours, and I'm not at all tired. I think that's the more concerning thing at this point. But whatever I swallowed seems to have worked itself out, and it is now time for me to get back. Well, I need to clean in here, and I need a little bit of water. I've had a lot of coffee. Some water would be nice. And then see if I feel like I should be awake for another 6 or 7 hours. This could be a 3-day vlog. I've done 3-day vlogs, but they haven't been like 3 days, like awake for 3 days. My battery's low, so I'm gonna stop rambling. But yeah, this might this be a 3-day vlog? Stay tuned. And I should, for clarity's sake, also point out that the person that gave me the pills was giving me something that was a prescription and was legally obtained on their behalf. Yeah. Anyways, it was a stranger. I don't know who they were. What have I been doing all night? I've actually been watching Sunlux videos. I've been doing various things, screwing around on the internet broadly, but for the most part, the biggest thing I've been doing all night is actually watching videos of the band I just saw. So, it was a good show. It was not a short show, but it felt short, and that's when you know it's good. They are a band that has enough, like very, very good material that they could have played for 4 hours. And I would invite them to come back to Detroit. Or in Windsor. We have a nice theater here. You want to play Windsor? Do a 4 hour set. Do 2 hours and then an intermission and then 2 more hours. Um, charge twice the price of a normal show. So if you would normally charge 15, charge 30. That's fine. It's fair. And you know, start with We Are Rising and just go. Or even start a little earlier. I think that most people are going to split the band off 3 records ago. That's when it got really. It's when it got real. It's when it got really good. So yeah, I can't complain about the length of the show. It was longer than a lot of shows I've been to recently. Say about an hour and a half, which should be a standard set, but isn't, right? It's just and there were people yelling at them to keep playing. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not joking. They really could have played for 4 hours. They have enough material that they could have, and I don't think a single person would have left. So, I wanted more. It's I would have stayed. I was in Detroit the other night until 5 o'clock in the morning. I would have stayed in Detroit all night and watched them play. Right? It's not not what happened, but hey, come back into a 4 hour set or a 5 hour set, 2.5 hours intermission, 2.5 hours, or put a couple intermissions in. I don't know how you want to do it, but there's not a lot of bands that can do that. Normally you need to have a good 10 or 11 records before you can even think of something like that, but they can on the strength of 3. So I'd like to hear it. I think I'm done rambling. I've got a few things to screw around with on here, and then I'm wide awake. I might as well get back to Hokkaido. I'm just checking the weather, and it's going to be cold for a few more days. But I just want to point this out here, because this is something that, as a Canadian, I'm happy to see. Now, if you're from outside Canada, you might not really get this. If you're like maybe from Buffalo or something, you might get it. But this is something that we see come up every year, and it's when this happens that we know it's spring. I wouldn't want to get that close. This is the Chaudière Falls in Quebec. I'm used to watching this ritual on the Rideau River. I'm used to watching that ritual on the Rideau River at Hogsback Falls, which is where the canal splits off from the river. And there's a big. Well, it's not quite as big as that river, but it's certainly dangerous enough. And you can there's guardrails. Stand back and watch the ice come down. But anywhere there's a waterfall, that's something that happens around this time of year, and that's the real transition point. So, you want to talk about meteorological this or how long the sun's up or whatever, but It's when you see the ice rolling. That's when you know you're really moving towards spring. Um, I've got a few more days, and it's going to cut a few things out of my schedule because I don't want to go dancing when it's below zero. So that's fine. I think the big thing for me right now is that I need to find a way to get to Detroit. I was kind of hoping to go today to get some tickets for the Melvins and Melt Banana show on 420. Um, I'm gonna need to find a way. I mean, I don't. I think it's unlikely that the show will have tickets on this on the date of, right. So um, I should go ahead and get some tickets early. But I will also point out the fact that it hasn't sold out yet may suggest that there's a lot of people that may want to do something else on 420, but are kind of just holding on to it as a backup. I don't know. Um, I think it's pretty much a primary plan for me. So, but I mean, I got to get over and do it, right? So, I don't know when. Um, there's not really anything else coming up, so we'll find out. If I were Iran and I calculated that the next president was almost certain to be Hillary Clinton, I would deduce that the agreement would not be upheld in Washington and take steps to immediately negate it. It's not just that the American people that don't trust Clinton. She has her global allies, sure, and she does. But her presidency will have some pretty severe consequences in terms of her relationships with a host of currently unfriendly nations. The Russians really do not trust her at all. The Chinese think she wants to contain them, etc. I would expect the Russians to start ripping things up soon, too. It's might actually have something to do with the scenario in the Middle East as well. You know, I mean, the Russians aren't pulling out so much as they're. I mean, the whole reason why we have this mess in the first place is because of the tactics. The kiddie tactics that the Clinton State Department or whatever you want to say about it. The people under her watch used against the Russians. I've been over this enough, but if you start seeing stuff like this come up, don't be surprised. Um, the there will certainly be a large part of the world that will react very well to a Clinton presidency, but the countries that are traditionally referred to as America's enemies are going to very likely not give her the benefit of the doubt that was given to Obama or even that was given to Bush, because she's a known entity. They know how she thinks. They know what she works or how she works. They know who's running her, and they're not. Let me rephrase this. They have no rational reason to think that situations will improve during her presidency. They have no rational reason to trust her, given that all she's ever done is screw them over. So you should expect this sort of thing. You should expect the Iranians to pull back. You should expect the Russians to get a little bit snarkier. You should expect the Chinese to withdraw their trust on certain things. Maybe the Brazilians to pull back, even though the Brazilians aren't there's no particular bad blood. Other than that, Brazil seems to want to put the world on a different path than America does, and et cetera, et cetera. This is in the context of the Iran issue. It's a small, isolated context. It is more broadly applicable, and it can be generalized, and you should expect it to be. So, what is today's Hillary's quote? Today's Hillary's quote. Today's Hillary quote. This deal must come with vigorous enforcement, strong monitoring, clear consequences for any violations, and a broader strategy to confront Iran's aggression across the region. Benjamin Netanyahu? No, that was something Hillary said. A lot of observers suggested that one of the things that Obama would be better than Hillary was Iran. I think it's been clear for a long time that Hillary's probably going to bomb Iran, or at least Hillary's as likely to bomb Iran as anybody with an R beside their name. That's what Hillary says. Well, I'm still wide awake by all of this. Weather changing dramatically. Temperature is predictably knotting my stomach up. I need to lie down on my back for a bit. I can't say that I'll fall asleep for sure, but this may be the end of the day. If not, I'll be back in a bit to try to get done. I'm wide awake. It's just I can't sit up. I need to lie down.